So, good vibrations. You know, there's one night I'm at work, it's like 6:30 at night, and the Vice President of Human Resources comes into my office. Now, this doesn't make you feel that there's good vibrations going to be happening here. So, you know, I'm looking behind him for the security guards, thinking something's gone wrong or something. But no, he basically, through some very strange reason, he comes in and he goes, "Do you have a minute to chat?" He comes in, sits down, he goes, our company has been given one slot for somebody to carry the Olympic torch. This is in 2001. And he goes, through some strange way, they offered it to me. And I was thrilled because a couple years ago, before that, I worked on some Olympic shows. I just really believe in the Olympic spirit. I'm a jogger, I'm a runner, but obviously I've never been in shape enough to be in the Olympics. And so to me, this was a huge deal for me, and it was like one of the most exciting things I've ever done. But the interesting thing was, so that night he asked me, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to be in it. So that's how I found myself on December 22nd, 2001, in Baltimore, down by Inner Harbor, with a bunch of other people. They gave us all white track suits, and there's like 10 of us waiting for the last person to join us so we can get on one of those little mini buses, and then the tour is going to go through Baltimore. And we're waiting for the last person to arrive for our bus, and he's running a little late, and here shows up the legendary baseball great Cal Ripken, right? He's on our bus, right? And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So we get in the bus, and the way, they give us assigned seatings on how we're going to get off, and they're going to drop us off like every 3 blocks. And so we get on the bus, we pull into the parking lot of a 7-Eleven, and the guy goes, I want everybody, we have a few minutes before the torch gets here, I want everybody to just introduce yourself and explain how you got selected to come on with the torch. And luckily, for me, I ended up being the first one. So I said, well, I got selected by my company, I created this database that helped our production run smoothly, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't not a really great story. You go to the next person, oh, and what's your story? The next guy's like, my name's Thomas Lauer, and I had bladder cancer, and I had my bladder removed, and I've had 3 chemos, I never missed work, and I'm just like, oh my God, this guy's story. And it goes to the next person, and the next person goes, I'm a doctor at Johns Hopkins, and I created this treatment for people so that if they get diabetes, we don't have to amputate their legs, right? And I'm like, every story, the next person is, I'm a abuse survivor. The next person is, I started this AIDS benefit in Baltimore that has become huge, right? Every story just builds on it. And I'm such a schmuck, like I don't deserve to be here with these people, right? And it gets to, so every person goes, and Cal Ripken's the last person to go. And Cal Ripken is embarrassed, because he's like, I'm just a baseball player, right? Even Cal Ripken, and I'm like, Cal Ripken and I are the 2 most embarrassed people on this bus, but he's Cal Ripken, and I'm a nobody, right? So I start talking to Thomas, the guy next to me, and he tells me this great story. Not great, but he tells me this intense story about how he'd had cancer, he had 3 sons, and obviously it was very devastating going through all this, and how his one son was very not communicative with him about the cancer and had trouble coping with it until the father got selected to run with the torch. And the son all of a sudden broke down, and it was what Thomas, and I wrote this all down, he said it was a breakthrough moment with his son, because his son was proud of him, and it was really touching. So Thomas gets picked up, they send Thomas to the front, they give him his torch, he goes out the door, I'm the next one, I go up, and the guy hands me my torch, we go down a couple blocks, he hands me the torch, and I get out there, and some guy comes up and just flips the little switch, so I'm standing there, and Thomas comes up and just bows over and lights the torch, and I'm just like freaking out because the vibes are just so intense. And I start running, and my mother's in the audience. I hear my mother's voice above the crowd, "Go, Jim, go!" And I hear an older gentleman saying, "God bless America," and these little kids are waving flags, and I'm in this white tracksuit running down Light Street in Baltimore, And there's a guy at my elbow, like a guy, and I make sure everything's cool. And he's like, "It's a great feeling, isn't it?" And I'm like, "Whoa!" I'm like crying. And so after my 2 minutes are up, I see the next guy, and he's there, and I basically light the torch for him, and that quickly somebody moves me to the side, turns off my torch, and I hear my family running up. My 2 sons and my wife and my mom and my sister, and I mean there was this huge crowd on Light Street that was cheering us all on, and that quickly after I hugged all my family and just wiped the tears out of my eyes, I turned around and the whole crowd had dissipated, and here I was, just a middle-aged guy in a white tracksuit in the middle of this tough part of Baltimore, and that quickly, but that moment of good vibrations is something I'll always remember. So, thanks.